Right, so this says it all now for the evidence for Transdev, right? Because I don't use Twitter a great deal, but I've started using it a little bit, and I've started doing quite a few tweets, right? So following me finding the Mayor's Big Bus Chat, the new campaign that they've got advertised currently now on the buses, where the Mayor of West Yorkshire, Tracy Brabey, and his Labour Party is asking people to give feedback and their stories about the bus services, even though I don't think the website they've provided is amazingly user-friendly and compatible to interact with compared to other websites, such as the Liberal Democrats website, which is very user-friendly. I think making forms difficult to use and complicated is part of a strategy which is contrary to virtue signalling, something that Neil Oliver's been talking about and Russell Brand and the other channels have been talking about, this virtue signalling where politicians and parties claim to want to help you and be there for the people, but when it turns out they're actually strategically planning against us and strategically planning in opposition. And when you get onto the forms and feedback, it's all either moderated or it's difficult to use the forms or in some other way they're deterring, and they're actually using promotions and advertising in collaboration with multiple other affiliates such as bus companies and football teams to actually promote and push their own objectives and make it look like everyone's going along with them, when, in what it's actually doing is a sales pitch through third parties to try and get the public on its side and let them do it, which is essentially influencing the electors, which is illegal. Because that's what they need to do now with social media, and they're actually breaking their own rules. That's the situation we've got to. And members of the council who have business interests aren't supposed to commission work when they might make a profit out of it themselves. Now, we've got to a situation where the contractors who are employed by the council and handed contracts are not public owned anymore. The private companies and the investors, the owners of those companies, are the peerage of the Tories and some Labour peers, Earl Dartmouth, the landowners nearby who are developing land, and all own shares in BlackRock and Vanguard, and actually own and control the contractors, these contractors have been breaking the law a lot, and we'll get into that. That's another campaign about the illegal road signage and the building and planning cheating going on. So they're making a profit, and they're directing their councillors how to vote on it. So the Tory leadership, the top of the Tory leadership owns the shares in the companies and controls them and directs them privately and makes a private profit, right? And tells its own political party members how to vote, particularly in housing developments and roads. And then the council goes and makes those decisions, right? And their colleagues profit from it. That's how it works. That's what David Cameron's doing and Nancy Pelosi in America, right? Essentially, that principle in law, in all the road traffic acts, it was highlighted as being criminal. And you had to resign from government if you were making a business profit yourself out of decisions that were being made to commission work by local councils, right? And now, instead of the peerage and Earl Dartmouth and, Lord Lucan or whoever it is, David Cameron, people like this, some of the lords and barons, instead of them owning a wine company or owning a widget manufacturing company or making screws for B&Q and having some shares in, sports equipment, right? What we've got is a situation where they are owning shares in the companies that have got the government contracts, like Care, Balfour Beatty, and things like that. And even the name commands Care. And then we've got Keir Starmer, who that name supports and suggests and powers and protects, because he is the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, who lead and decide who will be criminally prosecuted in this country. And now he is moved to the leader and head of the Labour Party. Right? So we've got serious problems, because in order to prosecute for influencing electors, which is illegal through advertising and promotions, right? And to prosecute for making gains and profits out of decisions made by local councils, right? If you're racketeering, we need to prosecute. And companies that are called Care and command the name of Care and stand for leaders of parties that have the protection of Her Majesty the Queen in their armour, like Jimmy Savile when he was alive, don't get prosecuted by the Crown Prosecution Service when they are protected, even though the companies Care that have been given the local contracts of the council and worked with the police to put out and place road signage and check it when it was illegal and prosecuted people with it. We don't get criminal investigations and convictions because these people are running the council and owning the contractors, right? Now, I have gathered a lot of evidence, and during my campaign, in my website, I was talking about the fact that I like schools and colleges, and I don't like academies or the word academy, because at that time, there weren't a lot of academies, right? Now, this is evidence, right? In my website, I made that statement that I don't like academies. And what happened following that being published is that someone or a group of people started and proceeded to start renaming all of the schools as academies, right? All of the schools then started to be renamed and rebranded. And as I was travelling around the country, I saw new signs being put up and new the schools and colleges started to get renamed, right? And that was opposite and contrary to what I had said and published on my website, right? Now, who has got the power to do that? Who has got the influence across the whole island to do that? Is the aristocracy of England and the ministers in Parliament have got the power to do that, right? And they acted and went and renamed all of the schools and colleges, a majority of them, to academies. Following that was a trigger, right? Now, we've also got, more recently, anonymous official and other major channels on the internet and on YouTube with a large number of subscribers and followers have made videos about BlackRock Vanguard Group and their shares in other companies and their ownership of other companies and their hierarchical influence over companies and brands, which turns out that they own nearly everything in chocolate bars, crisps, sweets, cans of pop, KFC, McDonald's, all the buses, transport, the contractors who do the roads, right? including companies who are nationally established. Some of them who claim to be in opposition against each other, but it turns out there is no opposition between Walker's Crisps and McCoy's Crisps, because the shares are owned by the same people. No matter which crisps you sell, they make profit, right? Now, as I suspected, more recently, Yorkshire Tiger buses was arranged for Yorkshire Tiger to be taken over by Transdev. And as soon as Transdev took over, I noticed hostile graphics and pictures, and I noticed hostile naming and rebranding of the bus routes to darts, right? And I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. The buses were not comfortable. They were saying, we're giving you new buses, they're brand new, they're brand new. The models of bus they chose are not comfortable. They're not relaxing. They're uncomfortable, and they fitted talking bus technology, which was very distressing, disturbing, and harassing, in line with the sinister graphics that they put on that bus. So immediately, I really don't like it. Just like I didn't like it when they renamed all the colleges and schools as academies, following my serious national investigation, which revealed illegal road signage put in place by the contractors and councils all around England. Right? Now, when I come to Transdev, I'm already suspicious about Transdev because I detect hostility in what they're doing. Now we find out through the building and planning that the government itself are giving our local area and other areas, our area. They want to build houses there. It turns out the land for HS2 and HS3 is Earl Dartmouth's land. But he doesn't even live in West Yorkshire. He's from down south. That's why he's Earl Dartmouth, right? Now, Dartmouth, we don't know how he got the land. I'm still in the process of finding out. Dartmouth got the land at some point when it was supposed to be given to the Huddersfield Corporation Act, which basically was King George, when it was bought from Ramsden, John William Ramsden, by Sam Copley, who mysteriously got rich by £3 million down under in Australia and came back and bought it from the Liberals. And then we see the ICI taking off, and the whole area, which has a critically serious heritage area, got built up and ruined by that tram station being put there, and the cinema, and Dalton, which was the name of the area, got named with the introduction of the tram station and the cinema. It got named Waterloo, which is long for toilet, right? A lavatory, a toilet, a place you go to take a poo and take a wee, right? And a battle named after a conflict, a battle between two forces, which is not unlike the conflict between the Liberals and the Tories, because the area is affiliated with the Roundheads versus the Cavaliers, the Parliamentarians versus the Royals. When Oliver Cromwell defeated the Royals, that's what the area represents, as well as it being Brigantes and Celtic before the Romans and before the Norman conquest of England. So the area is not best popular with the royal camp, right? And with the major heritage sites there, not only did the war, World War II, break out exactly when Varley started excavating the local sites nearby, and it was obstructed from fully doing archaeology on the warrior's tomb, because halfway through his excavations after the war, which was on for 6 years, and we don't know what people were doing messing around when everyone were put into service and weren't hanging around there to see what were going on, whether they were messing around with the sites while everyone was sent off to war. The Labour Party got control of the council from the Liberals for a 3-year term and built directly on the ancient site at Waterloo. We've also got the Tate Modern in London, which the affluent Tories seem to esteem and highly regard. The art exhibition in the Tate Modern, which features a toilet with a graffitied, spoiled toilet, which happens to be a unique shape of toilet, which is the exact shape as that ancient site mound at Waterloo. And I know they like to take extreme relish and meaning out of these things, because to them it is art in progress. Naming of things is an art. And they've particularly taken an art in spoiling that local heritage area, right? And they took an art in ruining the colleges and schools by changing it to academies, following me raising the matter in my investigation, right? And they've now got an art in the changing of the bus routes from the 233 to the darts. So now we've got darts flying around straight past Dartmouth's estate. Next to the ancient site, they built a street with the letter D on it for darts, and they hit the bullseye with that. And it wasn't Yorkshire Tiger Eye of the Tiger bullseye. Now we've actually got a, you know, a dart, and it even says on the buses now, dart into town. They're even throwing darts into town in their art. So there's something going on with Earl Dartmouth and the names of the buses. There's something not right. And the characters on the buses that are very sinister. And what we've got here on this screen, when I hadn't got into looking into Transdev, but I knew there was something that I don't like about the company, right? Now, they had started doing talking buses already. For example, doing talking buses over in Bradford, because I got one to Harrogate, one of the Harrogate Keighley buses, right? And that's the first time I'd really encountered talking buses. I'd seen one or two on the Arriva, like maybe the Leeds Arriva bus, but in Huddersfield, we were relatively talking bus free, except for that Leeds bus, because I hadn't even heard the talking bus on the Bradford ones. In fact, they don't have them on the Bradford ones, not many of them. Now, as soon as Transdev come onto the scene in Huddersfield, they bang these talking buses on, which are not comfy buses. They're short of space and uncomfortable, but they're new. And they stop and start, and are designed to switch off when it stops. And it is very much a art in the design of the vehicle. We know that we're trying to make economically friendly vehicles, but there are economically friendly vehicles that don't make an abrupt cutout of power when it stops. The abrupt cutout of power is so intense that it makes a bold statement when it stops and shuts off the power, right? Power off. And this has a very artistic significance to the passengers, who are usually all working class Labour voters. Added to the messages in the bus station, the voice, the character of the bus station announcer, who is walking on the carriageways against the law. This bus station is under 24-hour surveillance. You will comply with the law. As if people of Huddersfield are not to be trusted. As if I can't trust myself. As if I'm not to be trusted. As if there's something wrong with the people in Huddersfield. As if it's a criminal place. Added to the fact that you can't go in the toilets unless you pay, you've got to be fined to go into the toilets, just like you've got to be fined to go into the Victoria Tower, when yet Glastonbury Tor is free and you don't have to pay to go up there. And the whole point of having the Victoria Tower was supposed to be a place for refuge and shelter. You can't shelter in there because it's closed half the time. There is this entity of fining the Huddersfield people, charging them. And now we're having blockades, bollards, raising bollards, gates, built all around the town centre of Huddersfield in line with the Kingsgate centres, big fortress command design, and the command design of the university, which meant to look like some control centre, yet it is it's actually under government control. Not under control of the voters and the people who are supposed to have a say in the local area, that's for sure. So, I don't think Huddersfield is actually favoured at all. And it's funny because when you grow up, the people of Huddersfield, I truly believe, and I might not sound like it now because this is a complaint, and I haven't sworn yet, the people of Huddersfield and Kirklees by nature are, at the most, sharing and caring people of good nature. And that has more recently been corrupted by Facebook and the culture of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg and the culture of Google and the culture of blocking and banning and giving buttons for blocking and banning and a nurturing of intolerance. Because when we are understanding and sharing and caring, we give each other lifts. People give each other lifts and share. And the more people give each other lifts and share, the less we need to pay and the less we need to use buses. And if everybody in Huddersfield, the historic people of Yorkshire, are caring and sharing and altruistic, they end up developing a culture and a future that doesn't require for-profit enterprises like what the Tories run and David Cameron is competitive England. We don't need Earl Dartmouth and the peerage to buy up our public services, public-owned businesses like Yorkshire Water and the bus companies and the electric companies that are run for the public by the voters for non-profit. David Cameron and Nancy Pelosi and American investors and Parliament end up owning those companies, profiting from them in their shares in BlackRock and Vanguard, and they're the ones who take money from us and become rich. And it's to their benefit that people don't talk to each other on the tube station like they've done in London, and talk to each other on Facebook groups and the internet freely on Messenger to get petition signatures to oppose what their companies are doing, because then they don't make profits and they don't make trillions of pounds for BlackRock and Vanguard, and they don't have the power to take over the area with Transdev that clearly from here, all I have done is type Transdev in, and now we've got Transdev Chile. We've got Transdev Great Britain, we've got Transdev Watch, and when you scroll up and down, we've got Transdev all over. So it's a global company. So I can guarantee you that Transdev is right in the thick of this aristocracy affiliated shareholder circle with BlackRock and Vanguard, which is why also this The Academy by Transdev pops up as well. Because this group, I can guarantee you, are the ones behind, because of my campaign against their criminal activities with the legal road signs, the illegal road signs with the police, and rebranding everything academies. Why is it popping up that they also, Transdev, has a bold statement with academies here? It makes sense. Transdev, national global company, likely connected, without a doubt, if you look into it, to BlackRock and Vanguard, have a fondness and affiliation for academies, which was in opposition to me, just like the local Transdev bus sign writing and routes named, again, have targeted me because of my work in opposition against them. So what they're doing is they're using their influence on the companies that they own And not just bus companies, chocolate bars, ice cream, all transport, the food, mainly the food, because it's how they keep us under control through poor food, poor attention and diet, falling asleep halfway through the day. The foods that they give us are highly profitable to them and severely negative to us in our capacity for sharpness, awareness, mental performance, particularly when we're reading law, going to courts to defend ourselves in cases, in fines, things like that. The courts outperform us. Their prosecutors win and we lose unless we pay one of their registered lawyers to defend us. And who ends up owning the law companies? Why I never trust lawyers, because the lawyers end up being owned by BlackRock Vanguard Group shareholders. It's sinister. It's a complete sinister setup, right? So I have got serious problems with Transdev. The buses are not comfy. Yorkshire Tiger buses were comfy. If you go to Barnsley and catch a bus, the majority of buses in Barnsley are owned by coach companies. They're comfy. They have comfy vehicles. They don't shut off when they stop and start to make a bold statement of power off. Like Tate Modern makes a bold statement of, this is a toilet and we're taking the pee-pee, right? And it just happens to be in the shape of our ancient site that is called Water Toilet, Waterloo, right? Which never existed before the tram station or the cinema there. And the spread of the ICI, which was taken over by King George and taken off Ramsden through Sam Copley, right? And now Earl Dartmouth, one of the extended royal family, has got hold of some land, we don't know how, from Sam Copley or through the Huddersfield Corporation Act, probably passed over from Kirklees Council to him, and now he's wanting to build houses there and further spoil the area, right? And yet, where are the council getting the money from this project? It flows from the government. Why are the government flowing it to Scunthorpe? Why are the government flowing it to Doncaster? Why are the government flowing it to Skipton? Why is it being flowed right into the hotspot of the ancient sites around Dalton? Because they don't like those sites and they don't like us. The aristocracy of England don't like us. They don't like us because we are the Liberal Party that overthrew the royals through Oliver Cromwell, and we were one of the major tribes in England before the Roman conquest, and we are a threat to the aristocracy because when you spread sharing and loving kindness and doing favours for each other, because you're not doing it for the money or profit, you're doing it for love, you lose profit. Company owners lose money. And this is not in line with David Cameron and his pals. It's not in line with Nancy Pelosi and her pals. And it's not in line with the aristocracy and extended family who have taken off us our public services, not content with being paid a wage in the Lords, not content with being paid some money as the Queen. They wanted to have the entire equal amount of a country for themselves, for their own capacity, for their own resources to control the world. And they've now created themselves a multi-trillion-pound empire by taking our public services off us, off the public ownership, and making it private, giving themselves the contracts through Parliament to care, and the naming Knights of the Realm as the same name, and putting them in charge of the CPS so they can't be prosecuted when they put illegal road signs out, and giving them protection in suits of armour so they can continue to defraud the public and take advantage of us for pure greed and control, not only of this country, of the entire planet. And anything that we can use to vote and oppose them against it through petitioning is locked down. Because Mark Zuckerberg, in their employment, is locked down Messenger. YouTube is locked down. Comments are limited. The resource has been exhausted. But obviously BlackRock and Vanguard resource haven't been exhausted. Only our capacity to reply and respond. And anything we want to do to oppose their plans is limited. Except for certain things like the Lib Dem website with their forms, which is very straightforward and user-friendly. Whenever they want to deter people from complaining, they make the website difficult to use, unuser-friendly. And that's a problem I've got with this Mayor's Big Chat. And the next thing, another thing they're doing is they're attacking the gypsies now, because they want to eradicate and ban the gypsy culture and everything that they do, living on the land and travelling around, even though targeting a culture and a heritage way of life is discrimination. Because if you discriminate against someone from their sex or racial background or age, it's discrimination. Yet, Priti Patel and Boris Johnson and the Tories can say, we don't like gypsies and we want to discourage gypsies from living the gypsy way of life. So we're going to ban it. We were going to try and stop gypsies parking on land. And John Cottons at Murfield doesn't like gypsies parking on the protected trees and the protected Yorkshire Water area at the Three Nuns site. So John Cotton bought the Yorkshire Water site and he cheated the planning on the protected forest and field, which had trees at the other side of it. And with Yorkshire Water and Kirklees Council, John Cotton cheated that protected area so he could establish a tarmac car park in there. And now John Cotton's affiliated colleagues are attacking gypsies everywhere because the gypsies stand for the established pre-culture in this England, and it's one of the oppositions of the government who don't like the heritage and history of this country and area because they conquered it. And we've had conflicts in Northern Ireland, and these issues are being attacked through the companies now who are owned by this group. They own everything. And they're using their influence and power through advertising boards, through the scripts that they give their employees in television, through the scripts that they give their filmmakers in films like Donnie Darko, and they can attack individuals or groups who they find is a threat to their plans. Anyone who starts to do something in opposition to their empire gets targeted through that medium. Not only the actual land and sites itself gets branded and named a toilet, Waterloo, and have darts flying around them, thrown around the area, and they have to pay to go to the toilet in their own town in the bus station. When you're in Barnsley bus station, it's free. Is because they don't actually like us. And that the reason is we are liberal. And our philosophy is sharing love and kindness. And it doesn't result in profits. It doesn't result in stealing money. Yet we get branded the brigands, the thieves, the lowlife. Yet it is the aristocracy in Empire, in BlackRock and Vanguard, who have stolen our public services from us and now extorting vast amount of money and putting the prices up in food through the roof. They are stealing from us. And they're also intimidating us through their companies like Transdev. Now, I want this Transdev name put back to the 233, not having darts flying around. And I want the sign writing put to nice pictures or flowers or characters who are soft and friendly, not sinister and impish that intimidate the local teenagers and the local people. Which the council will probably think that the locals are intimidating because they're complaining all the time. The reason we're complaining is because when we do petitions and when we do campaigns in opposition to the council, it gets disregarded. It gets ignored. They don't act. In fact, the council is supposed to be there for the local people, not to combat and engage in strategic planning to strategise against beating the locals, to defeat them in the planning for houses and to defeat them in the attempt to put cycle lanes in. And one of the reasons the buses have got less seats in, and one of the reasons the buses are less comfortable, is because they don't really want people to catch the bus. They're trying to deter people from getting the bus and use bikes and put bike lanes in. In Ireland, there was a government objective to put cycle lanes in, but actually more local people were opposed to it, and they wanted dual carriageways to be put in, right? But they didn't do what the local people want. We're actually being dictated to by central government when it's not what people in local areas want, which that's not democracy. And they're profiting from the work. They're wanting to engage as many contractors as they can in doing work because it ticks over. And what they're actually doing is giving work to local councils and local contracts and plugging it back in for profit to themselves. All the time. It's basically like this mining Bitcoin. How do you get Bitcoin? By mining Bitcoin. They're mining black coin. They're mining BlackRock money by keeping contractors busy for profit and not for what each local area wants. Some areas might not mind houses being built or might not oppose them. Now, in our area, there seems to be a very odd amount of money being flown to our council over history to do with Barry Shearman, and it's actually been spoiling the area, not improving it. And now they're still saying, oh, now we need to improve Huddersfield. Well, they said that at the start. If they're saying in 1904, we're going to make Huddersfield great, and then in 1950, then they're saying, oh, we're going to make Huddersfield great. And then when we get to, the next 50 years on, we're going to make Huddersfield great. They're always going to try and make Huddersfield great with the next best thing. But it never is. Now, why is it that if you go to a city, like Bath, or like Dorchester, or like Oswestry, it's always been beautiful. It's always been a nice place. You don't need to try and get it better, because it's nice, right? Now, Kirklees have got issues. They're on a treadmill. The aristocracy and government put Kirklees councillors and staff on a treadmill like a little mouse, right? A hamster wheel. And they said to them, if you keep running, Huddersfield will get better, right? And what they did is they plugged a power source into it, and all the time, Kirklees Council are running on this treadmill to try and get Huddersfield great, right? And yet the electricity is being generated from the treadmill, and what it's doing is sending power to the government and making BlackRock and Vanguard and the aristocracy a load of money, because all our tax money is feeding back through the contractors and it's giving profit. All the work they're doing is going to BlackRock and Vanguard empire. But Huddersfield itself isn't actually getting anywhere, because in the late 1800s and 1900s, oh, we're going to make it great. And now they're saying, Huddersfield's a tip, we're going to make it great. And Kirklees Council need to realise, right, it was great. It had great countryside. They've never needed to try and make it great. It was great. The government didn't like it because it was great, so they wanted to trash it. So they put Kirklees Council on an hamster wheel, right, was trying to get to this Greater Manchester vision or God knows what, right? Maybe it's trying to be London. And all it's done is completely and totally trashed and ruined the area, right? It hasn't made it great. It's made a mess. And Kirklees Council need to understand they've been taken for a ride on an hamster wheel by King George, right? And by the Tories, because they made a complete and total mess of it. And we're still, there's always, we're going to make it better. It's going to be better in the next development, right? Well, it was already amazing. It was already amazing in 1904. And from then on, it's got progressively trashed, right? Why are people going on holiday to Bridlington? Oh, isn't it beautiful in Bridlington? Let's go there for a weekend, right? Oh, isn't it beautiful in Cornwall? Isn't it beautiful, on the Isles of Scilly? Isn't it beautiful, you know, on the Broadlands or wherever, right? It was beautiful in Huddersfield. Why aren't people coming to Huddersfield? Now, what the council are thinking now is, oh, well, we get a lot of Oriental students over from Timbuktu or wherever, which I'm not dissing Oriental students, but we're not. Why aren't Americans coming in here like they do to go to Uffington or Stonehenge? Why are people going, oh, let's go to Huddersfield, it's beautiful, right? It's not good. The current plan that they've got, cyborg things in the city, it's not planned to attract people to Huddersfield. The cultural art is planned for this mass university explosion of foreign students and supposedly, you know, all these eating places for the locals, which it's not going to get better. All the things that we had that were beautiful have been ruined and are being continually ruined, particularly Armonbury and Linley now, and places like that. And it's starting to spread out to the villages like Kirkburton and Denby Dale, right? And if we don't stop it now, we've got serious problems. And Transdev are a core factor in this, because Transdev are an international company with affiliations that are clearly and obviously linked in to BlackRock Vanguard Group, right? And they've got an issue with our area. And that issue is being subjected on the locals through the artwork and through the naming, because there's an art to it. There is an art to it, like there is an art to the Tate Modern. And that is why these people pay a lot of money for art, why they pay millions for paintings, the Mona Lisa, because it has a value. The name and the meaning of an act or action to someone who likes it has a value. It could be millions. That is why Dartmouth, it has a value of having the dart buses flying around a dart into town. That is why we have a value of sinister characters on the buses being an harassment to the local teenagers and people. And why there is a value to having an authoritative person in the bus station talking to us if we're all criminals. And why they fine us to go in the Victoria Tower and they fine us to go into our own toilets, right? Because they don't really like us. Because really, if we have love and sharing and kindness, they will go bankrupt. There will be no power. There will be no authority. There will be no control. There will be no empire with vast amounts of money. Because everyone will give each other lifts around and help each other out and share. And that is not the way Mark Zuckerberg and Nick Clegg are going and Google. Because they don't want us to have free speech. They don't want us to be understanding any philosophical situations and states. Because that is where political power is the core and the root of political power. And when you've got that, then you say maybe Mark Zuckerberg shouldn't have a mansion in Hawaii. Maybe Mark Zuckerberg's company should be public owned. Maybe Mare should be public owned. Maybe Nick Clegg shouldn't be the president of it. Maybe Google shouldn't be privately owned. Maybe eBay shouldn't be privately owned. And then these people aren't making the decisions. And then these people don't have all the money, right? And then we, the people, decide and vote on what these companies should do, like when they're publicly owned. And I think they could be run publicly owned, but I think that they were sabotaged by the affiliates of Cameron and his crew and hackers, the same people who are hacking his petitions and making us unpopular on Facebook and lowering his likes and all this thing. So it looks like we're not popular. So it looks like people don't want to vote for Lib Dems. That's the problem, right? And Transdev are right in the thick of it, because that tram station and the creation of Waterloo is a key piece in this story. It's a key critical piece of evidence in this story. It is absolutely the bang on target of the problem, an example of the problem, and then up pops Earl Dartmouth with his building, right? And it all makes sense because you can see what is happening, which is exactly what Sorrel Amor has said on her website, and exactly what anonymous official have given evidence for in their video, which I've put. And this is my evidence for the illegal road signs and for the illegal planning corruption and who has been making profit out of it. And if you try and oppose them, if you try and stop them by petitioning, not only is your mental clarity and speed of thought outwitted and outdone by their prosecutors and by their judges and by their council complaint systems. And if you notice, everyone's noticing that now, oh, this is out of our remit, that is out of our policy, or no, I won't pass this message on, you know, you have to do it yourself. It's, instead of working to help us, everything is closing. Doors are closing. It was a lot easier to do things in the 1950s and 60s in procedures than it is now, because they don't want us to. And this is part of what Neil Oliver's talking about on GB News, and it's what Russell Brand's talking about on his channel. It's an international channel with over 5 million people. It's not got as many as some channels that have 11 million, but it's big. And this is what is now being discussed by political parties like the Reclaim Party, like Lawrence Fox is talking about this. Because, even though I think Lawrence Fox is, you know, he favours the Tory side in a way, even though he says to be a bit of a rebel, this is the problem. So I've got serious problems with Transdev internationally as a corporate company that has shareholders, and it's what it's doing to West Yorkshire now, what it's doing to the local people, and what the council's doing, and what Earl Dartmouth's doing, right? And I have got the legal right to enter a complaint to First Buses to back me up on it, because I think First Buses, I think Transdev want to take over First and Arriva. And I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't been messing around to get the Arriva bus drivers to go on strike. And by that means it's having a strike at us again, but not looking like where the strike's coming from. And I think they want to take First Buses out. I think First Buses have been sabotaged, but that is something that I cannot yet prove, but I've got a hunch on. Because I think that Transdev want to take over the transport. And I don't think that it's the answer. And I don't think forcing people to use bikes is the answer either. Because I think they've also been fleecing us with the taxes. It ends up where there aren't even any of your own ethnic group doing taxis anymore in your own area. And I'm not being racist. All I'm saying is every time you get a taxi, it tends to be foreign people who you have less in common with and you have less chats with, right? If taxis didn't exist in the form it does now, and if buses only ran on main routes, on main roads, like from Huddersfield to Wakefield, or from Huddersfield to Dewsbury to Bradford, if buses only operated on main roads and more local small areas had minibuses, right, then you get on the main road to the local area you're going, and then you wait for the little small bus to come and pick you up and take you to where you're going, right? And you won't need taxis. And it would be a lot more convenient to get to exactly where you want to go without going ridiculous ways. And it would be a price which was, instead of really expensive like the taxis, or when you get a whole week bus pass really cheap, it would be in between. You could get an entire week pass. It blends the two together. And they don't want to do it because the government won't make as much money. And when I say the government won't make as much money, it's the private companies that they own, right, that are making the money. And there's no worse than what David Cameron and the aristocracy hate more than anything is local people, the idea of pretty vacant, I'm so pretty vacant, like John Lennon sings, right? All these they're complaining about fuel, they're complaining about the environment, yet all these empty seats driving past us all day, even though virtue signalling says, oh, car sharing, car sharing, car sharing. Give a bit of virtue signalling, oh, car sharing, make it look like you care. Rubbish, right? It's waste of resources. Now, all they needed to do was get minibuses. That's why the Volkswagen Camper symbolises, you know, peace and love and hippies. But they haven't got them out everywhere, have they? Because if basically everything that we should, all the assets that we should have, all the people coming past and giving you lifts, loving, caring, people coming past talking, people coming past and talking about politics, right? All those things, they don't want us to have those things. They want the guy across the road who's got a petrol station to be fleecing the hell out of you. They want you to be smiling through your teeth at them. They want you to go, you know, the good neighbour. The Tories want you to go across to the road, and they want the hard-working class man, they want him to be, you know, smiling politely through his teeth while he's being robbed. They want neighbours to be robbing each other. And then they want the Tories to go in with a big wallet and pull it out, and they can afford. Because they've got the capacity to not be hindered by it. Because they're the ones who are robbing everyone else, right? This is the problem. And I don't think Mark Zuckerberg wants to give up the control of Meta to the country. Because he likes to make the decisions and decide what's happening, not voters. Because if voters decided what were happening, then we would be able to message each other freely on his platform. And it would be the public's platform. It wouldn't be Mark's platform. And Mark might be living in a normal house like, you know, Elon Musk is, not in a ridiculous, stupid Sharon Osbourne house up in the clouds with, with Tom Jones. Yet Tom Jones is the one in his song singing, you can tell that long-tongued liar, you can tell that midnight gambler, the ambler back by a lot of money's going to come down. Tom Jones is claiming to be opposed to the liars and the cheats. Yet he's the one who is selling the mansions and houses and swimming pools and the excess greed in life, you know, to everyone on TV. So if there's more of a contradiction in life, it's Tom Jones. I don't know how Tom can sing that song. You know, that he's tell a long-tongued liar, he can tell the midnight writer a lot of them, he's going to cut them down. Because he's doing that, yet he's fleecing everyone and selling everyone in the Tories' greed. The guy's got issues. Tom Jones has got serious, complex issues with himself in what he's doing. Either he don't really know what he's doing, or he's just doing it, he don't believe in the song. He don't believe in the song he's singing because he's selling something else. You know? This is the problem we've got. And these things are important because this is the culture that is being sold to us through the television. And holidays, all the kids are going to have to get on holiday and get away to Bora Bora or wherever because, you know, it's no good here. If it were good here, they wouldn't be that bothered about going to Bora Bora. That's the problem, you know? This is it. But this is about Transdev. It's about the designs on the new Transdev fleet. It's about the naming of the new Transdev fleet and the history behind it. Who is in charge of it? Who are the shareholders and money? And the connection with the building and planning in that area with Earl Dartmouth and the Academy by Transdev. And Transdev clearly are operating globally. And they're clearly going to be affiliated with BlackRock and Vanguard, right? And they're actually attacking us. It's an attack on us through their businesses. And that's how they play it. And I won't be surprised if they are the ones staging many accidents, many terrorist attacks. Who else has got the money for it and the capacity, right? And we need to find out who and how. Is it ex-police chiefs? Is it ex-military? Or are they just choosing random members of the public who will become the next victim just by chance, by happening to be the wrong place at the wrong time, or for them, the right place at the right time? A car can be hijacked and taken control of quite easily now by teenagers, right? This is the serious problem we've got. So I have got a complaint about the bus company, Transdev. It's not a complaint about First. It's not a complaint specifically about Arriva, but I wouldn't be surprised if Arriva are connected to BlackRock and Vanguard. But I particularly don't like Transdev since they've come into Huddersfield. And on their other buses in the other towns, I didn't actually find too much of a problem. It's specifically our area. And that's why I think that our bus station as well, they've got... Kirklees Council need to realise we aren't really favoured in our area because of our history. That's why. And the opposition to greed and excess. Because by sharing, we reduce the profits of the opposition. And they don't want to reduce the profits. And they don't want us to get along with each other. They want us to build fences around our gardens, like they have at the palace. They want us to have gates and fences and it to be dangerous so we can put barriers up on blocks. They want families to not be able to go and surf what they want on the internet. They want people not to be able to get out of the car until one person gives permission to leave the vehicle, until they press a button. And the person in the supermarket will not let you go through the barrier or leave until they press a button to let you. Everything is going to become under the control of individuals through buttons and pushing. Because that's the model that this enterprise wants to get everyone to like it and enjoy the power. I'm not going to let you open that door until I push this button, right? They like it. They're getting you used to it because that isn't what they have been strategizing on. But they will have the master button, the master power, the master control, right? And this is what we're against. And this is why Elon Musk's neural network companies and Mark Zuckerberg's goggles are severely dangerous and hostile. And we need to proceed with extreme caution through voting, not through corporate executives' decisions and what they can do because they can afford to do it, but by what the public will allow them to do and vote for them to do. Not from what Mark wants to do and not for what Elon wants to do, what the people want to do. And actually Elon has been talking out about, he supports free speech. So I'm not actually blaming him because I think Mark's worse. But we've got issues. We shouldn't need profits in this day and age. We shouldn't even need profits. We should be able to control what we eat and what we do through negotiation and through friendship and volunteering and kindness. Because that's where altruistic evolution leads us. But the Tories haven't been leading us into altruistic evolution and new brain connections. The human brain evolves by more and more and more and more connections. Yet on YouTube, we've got less and less connections, less and less information. You can't see this, you can't see that. We won't show you how many dislikes there are. You can only type this or that amount of letters, right? Mark Zuckerberg and Google don't really want to treat us all like an evolving brain that is growing more and more and more connections and getting more and more information. It wants to control how much information and what information each unit sends and receives between other people. Because when other people share information, the central command is not in control of the decision making. The whole unit is, everyone. And that is not how BlackRock and Vanguard want the world to operate. BlackRock and Vanguard and the aristocracy will be the master command, and we will be on slave drive setting. They don't want the brain to evolve to more and more and more connections between brain regions, because then the entire brain makes decisions on its entirety and how all of the brain is. If all of the brain's healthy, if all of the brain's happy, and the big picture it sees. BlackRock and Vanguard and Mark Zuckerberg and the aristocracy want to control which networks in the brain or the the analogy of the brain through the human race, the people, they want to actually stop us from communicating between each other, like on the tube station where no one talks to each other, because they don't want decisions to be made between us who are regarded as the lower people, the working class. This is why I don't vote for the Labour Party. As soon as you vote for Labour, you are saying, I am a slave. I am a labourer. Who would vote? Who would do such a thing? If you're a human and you believe all humans are equal, if you vote for Labour, you're literally getting down on one knee and saying, you are my master. I don't know what is the problem with Labour? Why would you do that? And if you vote for the Tories, you're saying, we are superior. This is why I am a liberal. But the Liberal Party is being perverted now in America. It doesn't stand for liberty, even though they've got a Statue of Liberty. It's just a virtue signalling party of the Tories. It's become, people are wanting to vote Lib Dem, so we might as well have to put the Lib Dem flag up. So what they've done is they're using the Lib Dem flag, but it's still Tories. There is a true liberal movement, and there is a true meaningful liberal, but they have hijacked it for their cause at the moment, and that's the problem. And all this is critical. This is the Mayor's Big Chat. If you need to know what's happening with the buses, and you want to know, how to solve the problem with the buses, you need to know surrounding facts and circumstances. And I think that we need to have a transport system that doesn't have taxes as really expensive and profitable for revenue. Sod revenue. All Rees-Mogg is bothered about is revenue and economy. Yet, we used to have public services that was non-profit. So we couldn't be that bothered about profit because we didn't used to have a profit out of it. We just used to run it so it worked. And if it works, it's there and it exists. So what's Rees's problem? What Rees is doing is he wants to have the profit. He thinks, there's a good company there. I think I should have that and I think I should make a profit out of it. I don't think the public should have it and it should run for naught because Rees wants the money. What else? What other argument can Rees put to it? It's run better under us. Well, it's run better under us because if it doesn't run good, then you'll lose profit. You had the wrong people running it. You want someone running it who wants it to succeed while it's under public ownership. This is a problem with the buses. It's the same problem with everything. So, no, I don't like Transdev. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like what the council are doing with their building and planning. All this hosepipe worth of money being sprayed on Huddersfield. Why? So it can get us running on a hamster wheel and power the governments. They can profit out of our demise, out of spoiling the area. Where our area is getting spoiled and ruined, but they're pretending they're going to make it better, like they've been doing all the whole time through. The whole time they've been saying that. Well, why is it need anything doing to it then? Does Dorchester need anything doing to it? No. Does Bristol or Norwich? You go there because it was decent, right? And it still is. It didn't get ruined. Huddersfield was decent, but there's something seriously wrong with this council. I don't know if it's blind. I don't know if it's stupid. I don't know if it's just the money that it's getting. Oh yeah, the government are giving us a lot of money. Woohoo! It's almost like, little kids being given loads of sweets. You can hear there's £50, go buy some sweets and watch your teeth fall out. That's what Kirklees Council are like. Oh, the government are giving us 200 million. Oh, let's go buy some sweets. And then those teeth will fall out. They think it's good. It's exciting. But what they're doing is stupid. That's the problem. They don't actually realise through the whole thing that the teeth have been slowly falling out. That's what has actually been happening to Huddersfield. And be proud of it. Oh, I worked in, blah, 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 I worked in this factory or in this pit or whatever. There's nothing to be proud of being a slave. In ancient Greece and ancient Rome, it was a celebration when you were liberated from slavery on the day that you are not a slave anymore. When they build a statue of you and say, here is, Amorphicus, he used to be a slave, but now he's free, right? There's nothing to be celebrated in Huddersfield of being a slave of Labour to the Tories. There's nothing to be proud of, and there's nothing to be proud of your ancestors being slaves either. That's the problem. And I actually don't think that there's nothing that can prove or say that the Celts even had slaves or they existed, because it's a speculation. You know, you have manacles and stuff like that for criminals, but, you know, there's no evidence at all because they didn't write anything down. So, and knowing me, you know, even though this is a complaint, I know that my people are generally altruistic and sharing and caring, because I have been when I've grown up, and anything that's ruined that and spoiled it has always been the courts, the Tories, the police, because they've always wanted to, you know, oh, he's a perfectly honest person, he's a perfectly altruistic person who helps people out all the time. Well, you know, it's something good. And they don't like that. They want to destroy it and ruin it, just like they want to destroy and ruin our area. They don't like people who love and share and care, because they cannot make a profit out of it. And that's the problem. And it's coming through Transdev, because I am getting all of these really, really bad vibes from Transdev. Not from the other companies, not from First or Arriva. It is Transdev. I cannot stand this new company, and it needs to be stopped. And the fact that it's global all over, I don't know who arranged for Transdev to take over Yorkshire Tiger. Deals were done, handshakes were made, and strings were pulled. But we need to get rid of Transdev from West Yorkshire, because it is not good for this area. And they're trying everything they can. They're trying the football team. They're trying to use the football team to influence us. They're trying to say, oh, it's an awesome company to influence us. They're trying to do this and that. But yeah, it's got sinister pictures written all over it. It's attacking the local teenagers. The bus station's attacking the local teenagers, accusing them of being untrustworthy. It's not good. And I'm throwing darts into town. You know, it's not good meaning in the symbology. It wants to be happy and peaceful, not darts being thrown around and sinister. Who in their right mind would want to call a bus route darts? And having a dart into town when you've got Earl Dartsmouth who's fleecing you all and making money out of the area. And after he's taken a wee, a loo, a toilet on your local heritage site, and then put a well-known and well-established, world-renowned art installation in the Tate Modern to make a point out of it as well, happy to be the same shape, and have a toilet. Because it's their conflict. Their conflict now is against individuals. They own all the companies. So they're not targeting companies anymore because they own them. They don't need to target any companies because they own them all. They're targeting individuals. And how they do it is they're stopping us from having political power and communicating between each other. And they're using harassment through their massive power adverts, their massive power graphics and signs, and their massive power names. Because they are the experts, and it is a fine art of attack against their opposition. And they've done it to the Lib Dems. They're also using accidents. They're setting up accidents, and they've got an entire organisation doing it. And we need to find out who it is. We need to find out if it's ex-police chief officers, if it's ex-security guards, if it's some part of MI5 or MI6, ex-military, or a few of these people, and just the ability to hijack or use anybody passing by for their purposes through the technology, the vehicle, brakes, steering, traffic lights, anything can be possessed. They possess everything. Everything's in their possession, so they can use traffic lights are in their possession. They can possess any vehicle, anything they want, to their ends. This is how the new world war is playing out. It's not playing out through Putin and Ukraine, I can guarantee you that. That is a further threat of harassment and distraction. The World War III is playing out through the art of attacks on individual people, because it is only individual people who oppose them, like, you know, Russell Brand, David Icke, people like that. It is the war of individuals who have a opposition to the enterprise and its command, its regime. They want the regime to have superior power, and that is the only way this planet's future can exist, through regime, enterprise, command and rank, financial power and technology, not through the evolution of altruistic, sharing, caring human beings put first over the priority of Mark Zuckerberg's virtual reality and over Elon Musk's neural link, which should be secondary, second importance. Getting to space of Jeff Zuckerberg should be secondary importance. Profits of Jeff Zuckerberg should be of secondary importance to the evolution of the human spirit and mind in altruistic kindness and love. And that is actually where the Liberty Caps come in, and carrying on where we left off with the evolution of mankind, not through their virtue signalling or proposed false research, which is a lot of rubbish, through the true real research which they don't want to tell us about and they don't want us to know about. Because when everyone is sharing and caring, there are no profits to be made. Right? And they certainly aren't going that way with BlackRock and Vanguard. They're going full speed the other way. And this is the problem. Transdev are part of it because they are part of this investment network. And these people, it is the manifestation of their objective in our local area. And the buses aren't comfy. I don't like them. I don't like what they're doing. And First Buses and Arriva need to stop Transdev now. Or we need to get someone who is not affiliated with these hostile forces.